What's going on, y'all? We're live again for another Monday live stream. I had to get a couple of notes together, and so I wanted to make sure that um, I had everything I needed to kind of discuss things with the fam for this week, and talk about what today's sprint is going to be, and also you know give you a little bit of clarity. Um, Specifically about what this community actually is. Okay. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about camera ideas and kind of a miniature rant about cameras. And so that's what I have. I'm going to pull up my notes here about today's sprint topic. Today's sprint topic, I wanted to lean a little bit into a little bit more controversial, more where you're kind of challenging the way that your audience perceives, the way that they perceive more or less um, how you do your work, if that makes sense. Okay. And so I'm going to pull up the sprint here. I'm sorry. I'm kind of scrolling through my notes here and I'm not seeing the sprint topic that I had selected. So forgive me. I'm also probably going to set up other stuff in my community here. So the idea and the basically the prompt content, the prompt for this week is cheaper isn't safer. And so you're explaining essentially why, you know, going with the cheaper option is always best. And you're talking to your ideal client. And so that's what the sprint is. And I have some notes here. My notes are spread all over the place. So I'm kind of pulling them together for this. How's everybody's holiday been? How did that go for you guys? I know for a lot of business owners, this is kind of your natural time where you build in time off for yourself. I managed to squeeze in a couple of days off. I didn't necessarily take anything off really. Um, in terms of, not working. Like I worked pretty much every single day, but I did get a chance to kind of hang out with fam and things along those lines. And so, really excited to be back in the grind of things and really excited to really see where this community goes over the next couple of days or over the next couple of years. Um, I'm excited because I think that this community offers a fantastic opportunity for business owners to jump in and get some hand holding, some direct assistance when it comes to creating content, as opposed to just having more or less um, no options provided to them. Where you actually have somebody who is locked in and engaged and wants to teach you some of the basics of recording your own content without having to outsource that stuff, and teach you some of the best practices and things along those lines, and some quick hacks that make your life a little bit easier as a business owner that's recording their own content. Um, I just shared this to our main group here. All right. So it looks like we got people in the chat or people watching. Let's go. All right. So um the reason why I simplified our weekly sprint, and this is something I've been revising over the weeks, because initially it was a 5-day sprint, and I wanted to make it a 3-day sprint because typically when we have 5-day sprints, people would get to like day 3 and then drop out, and it would kill all the momentum they built because they make it so that their look back window is a little bit longer and they are less pleased with the output of their product. And so I wanted to shorten the gap between coming up with the concept for the video for their business and publishing the video for their business. I thought that was really important to shorten that gap. And so that's why I shifted from a 5-day sprint to a 3-day sprint. And I thought I had a decent framework with the 3-day sprint, but looking back on it, it could be a little bit daunting for beginners. Because you're going from somebody who has not created any content, who's not recorded themselves for talking about their business, recorded themselves in a client facing capacity, and you're asking them to sit down in front of a camera with the microphone and clearly articulate and in communicate in something that's going to resonate with their audience, that's going to connect and also drive a point home. And those are skills that you build over time. And so really the concept of the sprint was I wanted you guys to get your reps in and start flexing your muscles about creating content, because that's the only way you get better. Realistically, I think a lot of times we want to jump in and bypass a lot of the learning process. We want to uh, avoid all the pains that come with not knowing how to do something and the stumbles you make, and avoid all the mistakes that you make when you're first starting out, and just leapfrog to the success. And that's not how you learn anything. um, in order to gain not even mastery, a novice level understanding of something, you have to jump in and make some of the mistakes and then learn from the mistakes and reiterate and get better. And I think one of the things that I was doing with the 3-day prompt was, I feel like I was progressing people a little bit too fast. Okay. And so um, that's why I altered a lot of the 3-day prompt. Um, and I changed the way that I was doing it because I really wanted to simplify that front end, where I wanted you to get the feeling of making and creating a video that is a working draft. Essentially, it's a living draft that you've published that people are seeing, and you're getting a chance to get real-time feedback on the video, or how people are responding to the video, or if it's driving business to your website or your social media and stuff. You get a chance to experience what that feels like. And then while at the same time saying, okay, this is good. This created a positive outcome. I think I can do better. Okay. And so that's why we changed a lot of the philosophy behind it. All right. So this week's uh, prompt for creating content is more of a disruptor kind of prompt. Basically, you're agitating the way somebody thinks and perceives. All right, we got some things. Hey, hey, how's it going? How y'all doing? All right, right. Thanks for tuning in. Um, but the idea is I want to disrupt the way that somebody perceives, a client or potential customer perceives your value. And you want to reframe the pricing discussion in their brain, because a lot of times when we don't, when we go with the cheap option, sometimes you got to do it out of necessity. Sometimes you just materially do not have it. But a lot of times, people will go with what the cheap option is, not understanding that that cheap option is actually a more expensive proposition, in terms of, a cheap fix sometimes has to be fixed multiple times, or it may not get deployed the right way, and you're having to pay to get it redone and redone and redone. And so this is kind of a disruptor conversation to say, yeah, the cheap option isn't the best option at all times, and this is why I'm not the cheapest option in the market. And these are the things that I do a little bit differently. Okay, and so that's what the concept is, and so that's what this week's live stream is about, or that's what this week's prompt is about. All right. So I'm gonna get into the framework about what. All right. All right. All right. Hey, I'm excited to have you. So we're gonna get into the meat of this thing. First things first. We're gonna talk about what the prompt is. All right. We're going to talk about why I picked this specific prompt. I have a list of about 80 different weekly prompts for business owners to use, and I'm probably going to post it in um, the school community, and post bits and pieces of it in the paid community or in the free community, just so that I don't overwhelm y'all with documentation and all the other fun stuff. Uh, but let's see. I'm getting my notes together, so forgive me. Hey, they'll come and go. I'm not worried about it. The idea is I'm going to engage people that want to stick around. If they don't want to stick around, then they're going to miss out on the information. But I'm more locked into people that are aligned with what we're doing here, and understand that I'm big about not making things as polished. Where I'm releasing the raw version of things, and I want people to lock in on the fact that they don't have to be camera perfect. Their messaging doesn't have to be verbatim perfect. It's just getting the messaging out there. Okay. So I talked about a little bit about why I simplified the sprint. Okay. Um, the reason why I simplify the sprint is I want to short circuit that. I want to shortcut that gap between learning and execution, because I think execution is a huge part of the learning process that we completely undervalue. Execution is really, really, really super important, because that's how you get the data point so that you can actually get better. Some people want to learn and never get into any kind of execution frame, and that's why they are perpetually stuck in one place. Okay. So today's 3-day sprint. The way we're setting up the sprint is day one. This is where you kind of lock in your setup. You determine, what camera you're going to use, where you're going to record this, and things along those lines. If you're going to be in your living room, if there's a coffee shop you want to use, and you're setting it up so that you don't have to cut. It's something you don't have to think about when you're setting up, ready and getting ready to record. And so you're locking in your setup. Okay. Day two is record the video. That's really what day two is. Don't rehearse it. Don't optimize it. We create your outline, and then we just go. You use the framework I'm gonna provide you, and then that's how you go. And then day three is where we post it. You watch it once and post it raw and walk away. Don't tinker with it. Don't try to edit it or anything. Uh, Day two is really where you're going to record maybe one or two versions of it, and find the version you're happiest with. But I am not right now, I'm not comfortable teaching y'all or getting y'all in the editing loop, because what happens with the editing loop is a lot of people get caught up in the editing loop where they create the video, they create the content, and then they're going to edit it, and then the video never leaves the editing bay. It just stays there because they keep trying to find ways to make it perfect. And unfortunately, um, that's where a lot of good ideas go to die. It just stays stuck in the editing room. It lays on the editing room floor. People play around with the color grade, they'll play around with the sound, to edit this word out, to cut this out, and then the thing never gets deployed. And so I want to hold off on, like, editing's probably going to be a more advanced course, and it's going to be behind. It's going to be after you get a certain number of repetitions in of recording, and posting, because I want you to build the reps first. Okay. And the only thing, especially after day three, once you post it, the only thing I want you to do is watch the response to the video. Are people sharing the video? Are they liking the video? Did it spike traffic? Are you getting more inquiries and stuff like that? That's the stuff I want you to watch for. Okay. What I don't really care about is, oh, well, somebody didn't like how your hair was in this video, or somebody was mad because you flubbed a word. Those things are non-material. They're not important. And a lot of times those criticisms are coming from people that wouldn't buy from you or patronize you anyway. They don't care about what you're doing. They exist online to chastise people and never really positively invest. And so a lot of times the biggest critics, the people that will sit there and nitpick your videos to death, are the people that will never, ever, ever do business with you in any way, shape, or form. They're unserious people. And so um, when we post the videos, we move into that posting and watching. I don't want you to go into the comments too much and get into the hand-to-hand combat in the comments of trying to defend your video and things along those lines. I'd rather you post it and see how for the lack of a better word, how the market replies to you, whether people are lining up, or calling you, or liking or sharing or engaging with your content. Okay. All right. So, and before we get started, because I do want to talk about, we do want to spend a little bit of time talking about setup before we actually get into the actual prompt. Okay. Um, Right now, I'm utilizing a cheap camera for somebody that's done videography in the past, professionally. This is a cheap camera. This is a little $600 camera that I bought on sale. It's a point and shoot. It's a Sony ZV-1, I think, um, and it's an old model. And the reason why I got it is because I like the image, and it's small, and I can literally just plug it into a capture card on my computer and go. Um, and it was a step up in video quality from what I was utilizing before. Um, which was a $60 webcam. Like it was a $60 webcam that I bought on Amazon. Might be $70. I bought it on Amazon. And that's what I was using. I have bigger cameras. I have more expensive cameras. I have more powerful cameras. But this is the camera that works. This is the one that's easiest for me to set up. It's the one that I don't have to worry about being out of my kit if I'm out on a shoot or anything. And so this is the one I go with. For some of you, your cell phone is going to be that camera. It's going to be easier for you to utilize your cell phone and talk to it selfie mode. That's fine. There is a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to utilizing your cell phone as a webcam. And so if you're not into the technical back and forth of that in terms of what it actually takes and downloading that app, so it's not really that complicated. But if you're not really into the technical side of it, I would suggest getting you a decent webcam. Like I said, I got this one. This is a Cam Link from Elgato. It's an old Cam Link. I think it's like their first one. Got it for $70 on Amazon. Okay. I didn't spend a lot on that piece of camera equipment. And the only reason I'm not utilizing it is I like this image slightly better. But that also comes from the fact that I've been paid to record stuff for people. And so my perception of what is acceptable looks a little bit different. But I'll be honest with you, most people have not been able to tell the difference between my webcam stuff and my point and shoot camera that I have. Okay. It's just a simple preference. Go with the camera that makes sense for you, that makes your life easier. That is the most important thing, because to be honest with you, when we're recording content, when you're recording video content for social media, people are looking at it on a small phone. They're not watching it on big monitors, or not watching it on a big screen. And so your image quality just needs to be passable. It doesn't need to be amazing. It doesn't need to be exhilarating. It needs to be passable. The thing that makes a difference for most people is audio. People will watch a lower quality video, but they will not watch a great video with bad audio. It just won't happen. So you need to make sure that you're investing in some kind of mic setup, or if you're utilizing your cell phone, you're holding the cell phone a good distance away from yourself so that your mic can pick up what you're saying. Okay. And so, but I think people get too caught up in the gear acquisition side of things, where they'll ask me, well, what kind of camera should I get? My tolerance for an expensive camera is different than what your tolerance for an expensive camera is going to be more times than not. Okay. For me, an expensive camera is $5,000. And that just comes from doing, actually getting paid to record stuff for people. I would not recommend a $5,000 mirrorless camera for somebody who's just getting started out. Is just starting out. That's ridiculous. There's no point in somebody getting an expensive mirrorless camera if you are beginning, because like an expensive mirrorless camera, and this isn't even an expensive one. This is one of my older mirrorless cameras. This is a Sony A6500. I would not recommend this if you are just starting out recording content. And the reason why is every button, switch, or knob on that camera comes with a learning curve. And there's a lot of switches and knobs and settings on that camera. And so I would not advise that somebody start out with a mirrorless camera and capture card setup. I would save that for once you get comfortable talking in front of camera. You're comfortable with getting audio that sounds good, and um, you're not having to worry about all the other stuff. Like I wouldn't advise going with even a cheap mirrorless camera to get started with. I would save that step for later on. Use a cell phone, use a webcam. If you can get one for free or one for like, a couple $100, then maybe a mirrorless camera. But understand that once you start getting into all the menus and all that other stuff, and you really start trying to optimize and tweak, and you're looking at YouTube videos to tell you what camera settings to use, you've already you've already jumped the shark. You already are in too deep. And all you're going to do is immerse yourself in more knowledge that that doesn't necessarily benefit a beginner. Okay. Okay. The best camera is going to be the one that is easiest for you to use consistently. That's your best camera. Image quality isn't a bottleneck. Okay. Once you learn how to frame yourself in a picture and all that other, frame yourself in a video and stuff, the rest becomes easy. Here's what I'm going to say. Go with the simplest camera for you to use. Go with the most available and accessible camera, because people will watch low quality video over a high quality video with bad audio. Audio is more important than anything else when you're recording content for online. Okay. Bad video isn't a bad camera. It's bad decisions that go along with it. And I just rather you get started quickly and get the reps in before we start worrying about specializing in equipment. Right. Again, that's why if you have a kid that you're teaching how to drive, you don't give them a brand new car. You give them a car that that they can ding up a little bit because they're still learning, in the process of learning. Okay. So this week's prompt, why this prompt exists, first of all. Cheaper. The prompt is cheaper isn't safer. It usually costs more later because blank. Okay, that is the prompt. Basically, what you're doing is you're kind of talking about, we're having trouble connecting to Facebook. Maybe an issue on Facebook's, and we'll keep trying. Fantastic. Well, hopefully this still goes through Facebook. It's not necessarily liking, hopefully Facebook, y'all can still see me. Hopefully on Facebook, y'all can still see me and what I'm doing, because I just got an error message. So we'll see where this goes. This is one of the things that comes along with being on live television or a live stream. Anything can happen. So Facebook might be going out. I don't know if I'm getting on Facebook. I don't know if my message is reaching Facebook or not. So we'll see after the fact. And so this week's prompt is cheaper isn't safer. It usually costs more later because, and the reason why I'm utilizing this prompt is I want you guys to engage your clients or engage your target audience, and explain why going with the cheapest option is not the best option for whatever your industry or whatever product or service you're selling is. Okay. Again, it leapfrogs the pricing conversation, where it takes you out of that bottom rung of pricing where you positioned yourself at the very bottom, and puts you more in a position where you're the expert providing knowledge that's valuable to them. Okay. And so like I said, this week's prompt is cheaper isn't safer here. It usually costs more later because, okay. People choose the cheap option because it feels emotionally safer. Cheap feels reversible, it feels lower risk, and is easy to justify if it fails. Okay. But that belief is wrong, and it creates expensive outcomes. And so this prompt is to break that mental shortcut. Okay. So this is the belief disruptor framework. Okay. It's not a script. It's just a framework that you can apply to create the video to match this prompt for this week. Okay. It's a thinking structure. It adapts to any industry. So the disruptive claim here is cheaper isn't safer. Okay. It interrupts autopilot thinking of searching for the lowest value or the easiest value. And it forces the attention to what your offer is without yelling at them. Okay. The familiar motivation, we're going to talk about why people choose cheap in the first place. It's born out of fear. It's born out of uncertainty. It's born out of regret avoidance. They're trying to avoid that regret cycle, the buyer's remorse, if you will. Okay. And so we're going to acknowledge the fear before we start correcting the thought process that comes behind it. Okay. For those that are tuning in, this is our weekly recording prompt. And so I'm talking about this is kind of a disruptor based prompt. We're talking about cheaper isn't better. Okay. And so we've said our main claim, cheaper isn't safer. Okay. We talked about next thing we're going to talk about is why it usually costs more later, because we're going to talk about the hidden costs of buying cheap. Okay. And so when you go with the cheapest option, a lot of times it's inadequate for what you're looking to do. You got to deal with redos, you got to deal with delays, you got to deal with the cleanup. There's lost time, there's lost momentum. Okay. Bad decisions aren't wrong, they're incomplete. Okay. So you're not paying for the thing, you're paying to avoid the mess. And I think that's the seed that we need to embed into the clients. And so here I'm pulling up some more notes here. Okay. So the example is you're not paying for the thing, you're paying to avoid the mess. Cheap feels safe until it hands you the second invoice, like until you have to pay to clean up the mess that cheap created. Okay. And so this is the interrupt that we're trying to embed in our target audience's mind. Okay. So that is really what this is. And so this week's prompt is cheap isn't safer. And I'm gonna give you the simple framework for that. So, and how I want you to record these videos, and I want you to tag me in these videos. I want you to record, I want you to post and tag me so that I can pat you on the back for getting it done. Okay. So, step one, we're going to state the disruptive claim. Okay. This is going to be a 60 to 90-second video. Cheaper isn't safer here. It usually costs more money later, because basically you're just saying cheaper isn't the best option, and you're validating what your price point is and why your price is the way it is and why you don't cut corners and stuff like that. Okay. So we're going to state the belief plainly. All right. Cheaper isn't safer here. Interrupting that thinking and forcing the attention. And we're going to acknowledge why people choose cheap. Okay. We're going to name the fear without shaming anybody. Okay. And so we talk about what they're trying to avoid, why paying more feels risky. Okay. This is the idea is you want to build trust by showing you understand the decision before correcting it. Okay. 3, we're going to talk about the missing cost, the thing that we're not seeing when we go for the cheapest option. Okay. We're talking about the cost that doesn't get included. If you go to a cheap mechanic, they may fix one problem by damaging 4 other things in your car. Okay, we want to talk about it. And so we're going to talk about the cost that didn't get included. And these are specific. We're not going to use hypotheticals. So when somebody takes a cheaper version of the service that you're offering, what problems do they normally encounter? What corners are normally cut from your professional experience? Okay. What shows up every time? We're going to talk about redos. We're going to talk about delays. We're going to talk about cleanup, and we're going to talk about lost momentum. Like any combination of those things is going to drive the point home. But what is lost when people pay for the cut rate service of what you're doing, the cut rate version of what you're doing? Okay. And the way you're going to frame it is it usually costs more later because of boom. Okay. Exposes that incomplete decision making process. Okay. Show that this isn't a one-off situation. We talk about how it manifests in different ways, like how um, cutting the corners here leads to other problems down the road. Okay. Speak from repetition. This is not theory. Things that you've seen in real life applications, you've seen problems that you've seen your clients experience from going with the cheapest option all the time. How many times do you see this, and what always happens next? Typically, the phrasing is that's when people normally contact me to to sort out things and help them get back on the right track. This is where the authority comes from. Okay. And so you're going to reframe the old buying logic with the better one. Okay. One sentence they can repeat. You're not paying for the thing, you're paying to avoid the mess. And cheap feels safe until you get the second invoice. Okay. We're changing a little, we're altering a mental model, a framework that they may be operating off of. Okay. This is the soft close. Number 6 is the alignment filter. Clarify who this applies to. Okay. And so this is not a CTA. This is not, there's no pitch or anything. You're saying if you're shopping purely on price, or you're saying if you're optimizing for long-term results, this makes sense. If you're shopping purely on price, it probably won't. So basically, you're saying you could either have long-term results or you can have the discounted price, but you can't really have both. And it kind of pre-qualifies the audience and filters out people that won't fit. Okay. So the execution rules of this: one take, 60 to 90 seconds, no editing beyond, maybe trimming silence or reshooting if you aren't looking at the camera, things along those lines. Okay. And post it without a whole lot of post editing added to it. Okay. What this framework does is it handles price objections, it positions your experience without teaching, because that's another framework that we can use, but this is not the time for that. It filters clients before they get in a conversation with you, and it makes your content do the work instead of just existing. Okay. So that's why we're utilizing it. So all right. Hopefully y'all understand this. And I'm trying to make sure that we're still on Facebook because I don't believe we are. Hello, hello. Hey, what's going on? So, like I said, I don't know if we're broadcasting live on every platform that I've picked today. And so I'm gonna have to go back. So there's a little bit of technical difficulty I'm encountering right there. Okay. So I'm gonna go back through this framework. And then if you guys got questions, you can hit me up with them. Okay. So the framework is, and this is we're doing a little pattern interrupt. We're disrupting some common beliefs. Okay. And reframing some stuff. Okay. So step 1, we're going to open with the claim: cheaper isn't safer here. Okay. Step 2, we're going to explain why people choose cheap. Okay. We're going to talk about what they're trying to avoid, maybe talk about the risks that they feel like they encounter when they pay up, the embarrassment, the regret, feeling foolish if that investment fails. Okay. Step 3, we're going to reveal the cost they miss. Okay. Point out what they didn't account for. It usually costs more later because blank. Step 4, show the pattern. Show sometimes that you've seen people take the discount way out and end up with more problems than if they would have just paid up in the first place for the service that didn't cut corners. Okay. And so this is repetition. Say, I've seen this play out over and over again. This is how it usually goes. Okay. This is where you are basically positioning yourself as the authority that's seen it all, that's experienced it all, and is there to guide them to the right solution. Okay. We're going to reframe the decision, deliver one sentence that they'll remember. You're not paying for the thing, you're paying to avoid the mess. And cheap feels safe until it hands you the second invoice. Okay. All right. We're trying to shift a little bit of a mental model. And a lot of times we're trying to filter out the people that are so locked in with paying, that are so locked in with the cheap option that they aren't really seeing the forest for the trees. Okay. We're going to close with alignment, and this is not, and we're not pitching anything here. Okay. We're stating who this thinking is for. So if you care about long-term results, this one's for you. If you're looking at shopping on price alone, then this probably won't align with you. So you're basically taking the group of your audience that isn't necessarily aligned with your message and saying, hey, I acknowledge that this may not be for you, and that's okay. Okay. And so, and it filters out people that don't align with your message, which is really important. Okay. If you follow the steps and a video exists, you did it right. That's all I care about. Record it. I'm not, I don't want you to be overcritical and get hung up on analyzing this video. I don't want you to get sucked into that rabbit hole, because once you go down that rabbit hole of trying to perfect or optimize a video before you actually are proficient at recording videos, you'll get hung up there forever. Okay. So that's this week's prompt. Okay. And that's the framework we're going to be utilizing. And I've kind of explained why. Again, to recap, execution is the most important thing. That is, last year, my kind of my saying was clarity is a gift. Okay. This year, execution beats everything. The skills that you pick up through executing are more valuable than the skills you pick up from just studying and reading and trying to optimize and perfect a thing that you've never done before. So I want you to get the reps in. The execution and getting the reps in matters more than anything else that you can possibly learn. So I'm trying to get you guys recording and get you off on the good foot. Okay. Most people aren't stuck because they don't know what to say. They're stuck because they're waiting for everything to be perfect. Just start, figure it out as you go along. Okay. So I talked about why I changed the sprint. I need to talk about specifically, this is for the paid community. The sprint in the classroom, the difference between the sprint and the classroom is the classroom is where we answer questions. It tells you the technical side of how to do A, B, and C. Okay. How to set up your lighting array, how to set up your mic array, things along those lines. That's what's in the classroom. The sprint is so that we can get the repetitions in. This is the weight training side of things. This is where you're getting the good reps in so that you can get better and stronger at what you're doing. Okay. The sprint builds your momentum. Okay. You don't study during the sprint. You don't try to perfect on the sprint. You just execute during the sprint. Okay. We learn the stuff on the back end. If you're sprinting, we're not researching. But the classroom can give you supplementary knowledge. The sprint gives you practical knowledge. Okay. We talked about the 3-day sprint. This is not about gear mastery. This is not about perfection. This is about how we get the thing set up and get it recorded. Okay. So day one. All right. Day one is to eliminate the indecision that comes with what's the backdrop, how are we lighting this thing, where are we recording this thing. This is where we put all that thinking into play. I want you to figure out where you're going to be recording this thing, where you're going to set up and kind of prepare your environment. If you need to set up lights, you can do that. If you need to figure out a way to rig your camera so that you can record yourself without holding your camera, that's fine. Or if you're just looking for a place to sit down where you can hold your camera and talk directly to camera in selfie mode, that's fine as well. But I want you to utilize day one to figure out the how you're going to shoot things. Okay. You're going to choose your device. I don't want you to go with expensive webcam or expensive or even cheap mirrorless cameras or DSLRs or anything along those lines. I want you to find the simplest camera that you can use. Some more times than not, it's going to be your cell phone or a good webcam. These things are great. They work very well. And you don't have to fiddle with them a lot. Okay. You can always switch. You can always upgrade later. Okay, but pick your easiest setup to make content for yourself. Phone or webcam. Pick your location. You're going to be at your desk. You're going to be at the couch, office, car. Um, Pick where you're going to record. And I would encourage you to try different areas. Just if you record in your office one time, find a place and record in your car another time. Like, try out with things that make you feel comfortable. Okay, because the environment you're most comfortable in is where you're going to make your best content. Okay. Set the frame. So eye level, make sure that your head and shoulders are in the frame. Camera stays put more or less. And turn on your grid lines if you have them, and put your eye or your head at the intersection of one of those grid lines. Okay. Choose the backdrop. It's going to be a plain wall. It's going to be a bookshelf, office background, virtual background. That's what I have running right now, because I'm basically recording in my storage space. And then just kind of figure that piece out. And then number 5, you're going to test your audio. Okay. Can you hear yourself clearly? If yes, then stop fooling with it. Okay. The rule that makes day one work is once day one ends, you don't need to change your setup during the free sprint. Like, you can keep your setup pretty much static and record as much content as you want until you're ready to try out a new backdrop or a new setup. You don't need to upgrade. You don't need to reframe because things feel off. Okay. So day one, we're going to set up and lock in. Day 2, we're going to use the framework I just provided and record the video. Day 3, we're going to post the video. And that's how it goes, y'all. And so day 2 is, I would say you could probably record 2 or 3 versions of that video and pick the one that's your best take and run with it. Okay. So I hope that made sense, and I really hope that you guys got something out of this. I'm hoping that my stuff got to Facebook. I'm really hoping. Otherwise, this was kind of lost. I'm gonna just have to, like, it's not lost. I can always download it and re-upload it to Facebook, but it's just kind of a frustrating thing if my Facebook isn't live right now. Yep, I think my Facebook died. That is really too bad. So what I will do is, yeah, it says was live. So I think Facebook kicked me off, y'all, which it is what it is. So I'm gonna re-upload this as a video and see. But yeah, this week's prompt is we're going to talk about basically why cheaper isn't the best option. And this is for your clients. And you're going to talk about why you aren't the cheapest. You're not the cheapest person in your space, and what corners are being cut when somebody pays for the cheapest option, and some of the pain points that they may experience. So that's kind of generally what this week's recording prompt is. If you're looking for the framework, I will post that in the comments or even the show notes, so that you guys can see this specific framework that I'm asking you to use to create videos. But get out and start recording stuff, y'all. The only way you build the muscle is utilize it. And some of you guys get too caught up in the learning side of things and not enough in the execution side of things. And that's not good. That's never good. And so I'd rather you get out here and execute the thing and make the mistake and learn the lesson that comes with the mistake. All right. So that's all I got. If you guys got questions, I will be around. If you're in the school community, this is the time. Let's not dilly-dally, let's not drag it. Let's go ahead and make the video. If you're in the Facebook community, let's go ahead and make a video. If you're in the school community, you can always hit me up for assistance or whatnot. Facebook community, I'm available as well to help out. But guys, that's all I got for this week. I'm gonna go and see and fix like I said, some of my destinations are jacked up and they're not streaming appropriately. So I need to go and make sure that StreamYard isn't messing up. I do appreciate y'all's time. Thanks for tuning in. Get started recording. Talk to y'all later. Peace.